It was Saturday, April 4th, 2015, and Marlena Light joined her daughter Amanda Taylor and Amanda's friend Sean Ball on a trip to Walmart. They were on a mission to buy Easter basket fillers for Amanda's 2 young children, as Easter was the following day. But everything took an unexpectedly violent turn later that afternoon. Amanda's mother, Marlena, received an alarming call from a restricted phone number that same night. On the other end was Amanda. Marlena couldn't make any sense of the situation, but it was clear that something terrible had occurred. She pleaded with her daughter to come home, back to Christiansburg, Virginia, but Amanda refused to do so, and stated that she and Sean were en route to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was no secret that Amanda had been headed on a downward spiral, and it all began with a traumatic event that had taken place nearly 8 months earlier, back in late August of 2014. Amanda's estranged husband, Rex Taylor, had allegedly been battling depression and prescription substance abuse for several years. He put an abrupt end to all of it the day he took his own life. Upon Rex's untimely death, Amanda fell into a deep depression of her own. Along with it came an intense level of rage, and all of that bottled-up anger would be unleashed on one unwitting individual, at least initially. It wasn't as if the tragedy marked the onset of Amanda's issues, however. She had a checkered past, and Mariah Roebuck, whom we'll soon hear from, substantiated that. She'd become friends with Amanda when they were around the age of 12, and the two had gotten into quite a bit of trouble in the years that followed. According to records from the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office located in Virginia, it was back in October 2005 when Amanda and Mariah jumped into a car and ran away from home. Both 14-year-olds were charged with unauthorized use of a vehicle. In the midst of Amanda's indiscretions during her 9th grade year, she met Rex Taylor, who was 2 years her senior, and they began dating. In early April of 2006, Amanda was charged with disorderly conduct as a result of some alarming behavior that took place at her high school. She allegedly screamed, "This place, I hate this fucking place, I hate you people, I'll kill all of you." The incident definitely went beyond the threshold of standard teenage dramatics. Amanda became pregnant with the first of 2 children she and Rex had around this time, and her high school career came to a premature end. But the birth of their son didn't seem to slow her down much when it came to engaging in criminal behavior. The years leading up to Rex's death were riddled with more run-ins with the law for Amanda, including another attempt to run away that involved the theft of a vehicle, a conviction of underage possession of alcohol, multiple domestic altercations, and a drug conviction relating to methamphetamine. Then there was the issue of Amanda and Rex's rocky relationship that had been marred by alleged infidelity, among other obstacles. Finally, in April of 2014, the two went their separate ways, reportedly as a result of Rex's prescription substance abuse. He returned to the home shared by his father, Charles Taylor, and grandfather, Alan Taylor. 4 months later, his lifeless body was discovered in a shed on the property. So began Amanda's downward spiral that culminated in absolute tragedy. Her next crime was so gruesome, so shocking, that it was beyond words. But there was much more to the whole disastrous situation than initially met the eye. Elements of evil had been carefully hidden under the guise of revenge. And though the old adage advises us not to speak ill of the dead, dirty secrets like Rex's weren't meant to be kept. The appalling truths were about to make their way to the surface. You see, Amanda had developed a deep desire to kill, and according to Mariah, the inspiration behind it was none other than Amanda's late husband, Rex. Rex had a profound fascination with serial killers. In actuality, his interest went far beyond fascination. He had connections with serial killers that unquestionably crossed the line. One particularly unnerving example was a long-distance friendship Rex had struck up with an imprisoned serial killer by the name of Paul Runge. The two wrote back and forth, and Rex went so far as to change his name on a social media account to Rex Runge. According to Amanda's friend Mariah, Runge sent Amanda $1,000 after Rex's death. In addition to the inappropriate relationships with convicted murderers, there was another alleged unspeakable act. Like Rex's obsession, Amanda's was further evidenced by some appalling revelations. Past social media posts under her account, where she took on the nickname Brunette Bomber, glorified mass murderers and their violent attacks, including Timothy McVeigh, known as the Oklahoma City Bomber, and Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris, the perpetrators of the Columbine High School massacre. It didn't end there, though. According to Amanda's parents, Marlena and William Light, all the evidence seemed to be there. If only someone would have acted. It was clear she aspired to be one of those merciless killers she so idolized. Of course, it would start with what she depicted as revenge, but it would head in a direction even more sinister. She couldn't do it all herself, however. She needed a willing accomplice, and that was where Sean Ball came in. Though it's clear that his feelings for Amanda definitely didn't mirror those which she had for him, according to Mariah. It was as if there was some sort of toxic bond that held the two together. The catalyst that seems to have put the horrendous plan into action began with the events of one night, just 1 week before the grisly spree would get underway. It was March 27, 2015, and Mariah and her husband Johnny Roebuck were celebrating Amanda's 24th birthday. Along with Amanda, Mariah, and Johnny that night was Sean, who had gifted Amanda that very knife for her birthday. As it would turn out, this was a poor choice on Sean's part. William Light, Amanda's stepfather, also bore witness to a portion of the mayhem that occurred that night. Amanda was taken to Carilion Clinic at St. Albans Hospital, located in Christiansburg, Virginia, an inpatient psychiatric and substance abuse treatment center. Apparently, Amanda had made the very same disturbing statement to Mariah. Clearly, Amanda needed extensive help, well beyond what she had received at the treatment center in the few days she spent there. Amanda had worn out her welcome at the homes of both her parents and her closest friend. She'd run out of options. That was when her wannabe knight in shining armor, Sean, came to her rescue. Maybe Sean truly believed that was where they were headed. Of course, he had no way of really knowing the extent of the horror the future had in store for him. A receipt confirms that Sean had purchased a room for himself and Amanda at the local Super 8 motel. They checked in on April 2nd, then checked out the following day, Friday, April 3rd. That afternoon, Amanda and Sean stopped by his mother and stepfather's home to grab some clothing he'd been storing there before heading to Asheville. It was then that Sean's mother, Becky, met Amanda for the first time. Later that evening, after Amanda and Sean had come and gone, Sean's stepfather made an ominous discovery. They'd never anticipated the need to change the code, unfortunately. The following day, the horrendous plan came to fruition, but it wasn't until later that night that the ghastly discovery was made. Around the same time the 911 call was made, Amanda placed that upsetting call to her mother, Marlena. The following day, Easter Sunday around noon, Amanda's mother-in-law received a distressing call. Though it came from a restricted source, Melissa Taylor knew right away that it was her daughter-in-law Amanda on the other end. No one could have ever predicted the identity of the victim Amanda had targeted. The revelation would come as a complete and total shock. By this time, a manhunt was well underway for both Amanda and Sean. Then a haunting post appeared under one of Amanda's social media accounts. But this wasn't the whole truth. Not at all, as it would turn out. That evening, pings from cell phone towers were used to locate Amanda's whereabouts. Members of the North Carolina State Highway Patrol observed Sean's white Jeep heading east on I-40 near Asheville. When they attempted to pull her over, however, she fled. She wasn't going down without a fight. Law enforcement braced themselves. They knew she was armed and extremely dangerous. This reality was only further reinforced by yet another sobering social media post that had surfaced that day. It read, "All right, it's about that time. I'm going to find my husband in hell and finally be at peace." Turning herself in was obviously not part of her plan. After a 2-mile chase, spike strips were strategically placed in Amanda's path. Finally, all of the devastation and chaos came to an end when Amanda was taken into custody around 8 o'clock that night, miraculously without further incident. A few hours later, a Montgomery County Sheriff's Office investigator and an FBI special agent sat down with Amanda. In the interrogation room now, Amanda is about to receive her Miranda warnings. You're about to catch a glimpse into the mind of a demented killer like no other you've seen before. The majority of the following footage has never been seen before. Amanda agrees to speak with the investigators, and surprisingly enough, she's poised to reveal every last twisted detail. Amanda begins her account of how she and Sean built their makeshift arsenal. It's no surprise that it began at the home of Sean's parents. Right off the bat, Amanda displays some grooming behaviors. People typically do this when they want to be liked or seeking approval. Additionally, she's got some anchor point movements going on, which show that despite talking calmly, she's likely feeling anxious. Sean placed the firearms in his Jeep, and that marked the very point when talk had transitioned to action, and everything was officially put in motion. The first visit that Saturday to the humble home of Charlie Taylor in Ellett, just a few miles from Christiansburg, had occurred that morning. Charlie had supplied his daughter-in-law Amanda with some money to cover the cost of Easter basket surprises for his 2 young grandchildren. The second visit, however, would prove nothing like the first, and it quickly took a horrible turn for the worse. As soon as she's confronted, Amanda begins rubbing and touching her face, a self-soothing technique. As well, her hands emphasize when she says act on impulse, but just before she says it. This is a clear cluster of anxiety, but also shows that she's experiencing brain and body mismatch, since her motions don't match her words. This indicates that what she's saying here isn't the full story. Something is missing. As coldly as Amanda speaks about the slaying, the autopsy would later reveal that Charlie had been stabbed with the large bayonet-shaped knife a staggering 31 times. Needless to say, it was a definite case of overkill. Shortly after Charlie was dead, Amanda and Sean fled the scene. However, nothing happened, and once again, they were off. But the reality of the dire situation was starting to sink in. According to Amanda, they had arrived at a crossroads, and it was then that Amanda presented Sean with 2 options. The way she saw things in her demented mind, at least. Amanda's hands are palm up as she retells her story, a position that can mean she's lacking confidence in what she's saying and is asking to be believed. As she speaks, Amanda uses a lot of ums. Filler words when someone is in the middle of a narrative can be a sign that she's thinking about what she's saying and leaving parts of the story out. According to Amanda, Sean was writing a farewell letter to his family as he was planning to take his own life. You'll recall Amanda's social media posts that reference Sean's death and her mother's account of the brief conversation on the subject that ominous Sunday. Well, the information Amanda had provided wasn't true. Now that she's in custody, she gives investigators the real story, and it was nothing like they expected. It's bizarre that Amanda claims Sean made her so angry by attempting to take his own life with her medications, but that she then decided to take his life herself. She's made a twisted connection to losing her husband to drugs with her justification of wanting to kill Sean. It's clear that she has a victim-blaming mindset and doesn't take accountability for her own actions. Amanda eventually exits the Blue Ridge Parkway, which consists of 469 miles of roads that wind through scenic areas of the Southern Appalachians in both Virginia and North Carolina. But the purpose of the detour certainly isn't to marvel at the beautiful scenery that surrounds them. Amanda's ability to target an innocent girl running away from her further demonstrates that she is a cold-blooded, psychopathic murderer. She has no qualms about potentially murdering a stranger. In a case of horrific irony, Amanda turns a firearm Sean had given her onto him. She shows absolutely no emotion that she may have ended someone's life just because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Her complete lack of empathy for this random person jogging who had nothing to do with her whatsoever is really telling as to the depths of Amanda's sickness. Law enforcement was unable to locate the jogger. Perhaps Amanda hadn't actually hit her and she managed to escape the area unscathed. But as for Sean, the situation was much more harrowing. It seems that's where his life ended. However, things aren't always as they seem. Amanda feigns her concern for Sean's condition. Of course, it's clear that the real reason for her concern is that she wants Sean to take the fall as well. To Amanda's chagrin, not only did Sean survive the shooting, he recovered and later provided investigators with his version of what led to the end of Charlie's life. Sean is advised of his rights and agrees to proceed with an interview. The investigators attempt to gain an understanding of the strange dynamic that is Sean and Amanda's relationship, or at least what Sean believed it to be. Sean assumed he was the father of the child had Amanda truly been pregnant. It appears that Amanda saw her relationship with Sean solely as a means to an end, especially since he had a car. Amanda used his infatuation with her for her own nefarious purposes. Sean's claim that he and Amanda had an intimate relationship makes his feelings for her much more understandable. It also demonstrates how cold, calculating, and manipulative Amanda was. Consistent with his feelings of obsession toward Amanda, it seems Sean was content to follow Amanda's wishes, no matter how depraved. Sean tells investigators about when he and Amanda arrived at Charlie Taylor's house somewhere around 3 o'clock that fateful Saturday afternoon. Then it's as if a switch is flipped. Amanda's demeanor drastically changes. Sean minimizes things here by calling it an incident rather than a violent murder. Guilty individuals do tend to minimize the actions of the crime. She suddenly went into a fit of murderous rage. However, she didn't entirely act alone. Though Sean is saying he hit him, he isn't mentioning that it was with a tire iron. He hesitates a lot as he speaks, making it clear he's thinking about what to say. In addition to the 31 stab wounds Charlie had sustained, he'd suffered 5 to 6 blows by the tire iron at Sean's hands. Murdering Charlie was just the beginning, or so Amanda thought. The following day, they got back on the road, but that's when things really started sinking in, according to Sean. Sean blacked out and Amanda took that exit off the parkway. It was mind-blowing how quickly the tables had turned. Sean had shifted from willing accomplice to target of Amanda's unrelenting wrath. Again, her hands go palm up when she's talking, along with her hand gesture mismatching with her words. What's most interesting, though, is that she suddenly starts anxiously stuttering here, which she hasn't done before. She suddenly seems desperate to say the right thing. Amanda also grooms her hair again. She wants to be liked and be believed in this moment. The only reason individuals in interrogation worry about being liked is because they're trying to be deceptive and want their deceptions believed by the officers. People telling the truth don't need to be liked. Here, however, it seems that Amanda isn't being entirely truthful. She had made other plans. And seeing as how Sean was a combat veteran and considering all the atrocities he'd witnessed during his tour in Afghanistan, Amanda assumed he'd remain unaffected by his part in Charlie's murder. Sean's stepfather weighed in on this particular matter during a police interview. In 2010, Sean was charged with 24 counts of felony burglary. He received a 3-year prison sentence as part of a plea deal. It was all just another lie. When it seems as if the loose ends have been mostly tied up, the investigator introduces a whole new topic into the mix. The question as to whether she was ever present when someone else was hurt or killed seems to catch Amanda off guard, and she struggles to respond. Although ultimately her answer is no, her reaction seems very deceptive, and her hesitation implies yes. She's clearly very anxious at this point in the interrogation, and this line of questioning is very uncomfortable for her. One can't help but wonder if there had been other victims, in addition to the young woman described by Amanda, who had allegedly suffered a brutal beating before Rex took his own life. A horrific possibility, but certainly not implausible. Clearly, she'd planned out what to say about killing Charlie and Sean's attempted murder. But this line of questioning wasn't something she anticipated. But as it turns out, this particular investigator has known of Rex's unsavory interests for quite some time. As the investigator says that he works in computer network forensics, Amanda's eyes shift. You can see her thinking about what this means and how much he might know. She has also gone completely still. Though her hands disappear under the table, you can still see them moving, and she's engaging in some self-soothing behaviors. After a bit of careful prodding and some time to think, Amanda reluctantly reveals details of the act, an alleged brutal attack that had taken place a few years earlier. However, it's important to note that this story has never been verified, and there's no evidence that it ever occurred. Despite the fact that she'd intended for that horrific secret to die with Brex, she had no intention of allowing her own barbaric plans to fade away. Shortly after Charlie's murder and prior to the trek to Bristol, Sean and Amanda had visited a local Dick's Sporting Goods store and purchased ammunition. Sean provides further evidence that Charlie was indeed meant to just be the beginning. Perhaps the most baffling element of this interview is Amanda's claim that she hopes to receive the ultimate punishment. However, it's not especially believable that she truly feels this way. Had Amanda genuinely wanted to end her own life, she could have done so before being apprehended by authorities. This just reinforces the edgy persona she tries to convey, the same one seen in the photos she posted to social media after murdering Charlie. But thankfully, the dream of mass murder will remain just that for Amanda. A jury deliberated for less than 30 minutes before finding her guilty of first-degree murder. In mid-November of 2015, after an unusually expeditious trial, she was sentenced to life in prison. As for Sean, he opted for a plea deal and was sentenced to 60 years for first-degree murder, with nearly 19 of those years suspended.